Welcome to Off the Shelf, where we take you on the most spectacular adventures, talk about salacious romances, dive deep into the latest true crime, and break down the most anticipated memoirs. Hey y'all, welcome back to Off the Shelf. I'm Carrie Martin Lashney, and today on Off the Shelf, we have the author that has inspired many things in my life, Miss Jillian Dodd, the author of the That Boy series, which we will be discussing today. Jillian, welcome to Off the Shelf.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Okay. So this is so funny. I was thinking about this yesterday, and I haven't even discussed this with Nicole, but That Boy has like triggered so many beautiful things in my life, including the reason why we're here now. Because I was thinking, I started reading That Boy during COVID, which if you haven't read the series, you really need to read it. It is just like so welcoming. It feels like home. It's like you're sitting down with your best friends and just chatting. It's just so relatable. So pause this, come back to it, read the series, and you'll understand why. You'll just fall in love with these characters so much. But I was thinking that That Boy kind of brought my love for reading back during COVID, which is why the Bookshelf Book Club started, which is why Off the Shelf has started. So you have trickled so many beautiful things in my life with one book series, which I didn't even know was a book series until you're like, oh, okay, here's another one and another one, and they keep coming. So we haven't stopped the series yet, have we?
We have not stopped it yet.
Oh my
We're
gosh.
at 8 books now, and there'll be more. We're on the next generation, so we've got lots of kids to write their love
Yeah,
story.
yeah. Lots of kids to write. Well, while we're here, tell me briefly what That Boy, tell the audience briefly what That Boy is about.
It's basically about three best friends that grow up in a small town in Nebraska. Two cute boys, and a kind of a tomboy girl. And the book starts, she's standing on a stage. She's just gotten engaged to one of the boys. You don't know which one. And she is already told him yes, but she's pretty sure that she's going to tell the crowd no. And and then it goes back to fourth grade, and you see snippets of their life from fourth grade through who she eventually gets engaged to, and how that all pans out.
Yeah,
So
and
but
then
it's
the
definitely a
series
story. Yeah, it's
develops from
definitely a story of
there.
friendship.
Yeah, oh God, it is such a beautiful story. And now, just to kind of give everybody a little teaser, the reason why I have such a beautiful relationship with Jillian is, I mean, 3 years ago, I slid into her DMs, and told her that I wanted to make this series come to life. And without hesitation, we jumped on a call a few days later, and the conversation has been going from there. What is happening? Is this being developed? Where are we at? I mean, obviously, no announcements have been made at this time, but we are moving towards an exciting place. And that's all I'll say before any big announcements get made. Um, but okay, so what inspired you to write this story? Because it is a unique friendship. It's not all boys, all girls. It is very specific. And I related to it very, very much because I enjoyed having more guy friends than girlfriends growing up. But JJ is, or Jaden, one of the characters,
Mhm.
yeah, she has a special love for these two characters. And so, what inspired this story for you?
So I've always been a really avid reader,
Mhm.
and I have always been a crazy dreamer.
Yeah.
Like, I have vivid dreams that I remember that I am other people, like I'm not, like I'm in somebody else's being. And I had a series of three dreams about the same three characters in different points in their lives. And being a reader, I needed to know the rest of the story. So I wrote down the vivid dreams, and then I just was like, I need to know. I didn't know who she was going to end up on based on the dreams. I dreamt the very first scene where she's on the stage, and I dreamt there's a scene where she's playing football at Nebraska, in a flag bikini top. And then there's one where they play strip football in the snow.
Mhm.
And I was just like enthralled with these people who kept invading my life. And I started writing the story, and it took me a really long time, probably 5 or 6 years. I mean, I wrote the dialogue fast because it came fast and furious, but then I didn't really know how to write, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I've always been a creator and a writer. I love art and all that, but I never sat down to write a book for sure.
That's actually incredible, because I was going to ask you what, what also inspired you to become a writer, but the fact that you have these incredible, I have crazy dreams, but nothing like that are so vivid and so specific and are almost like telling you to be written.
Yeah, I mean, I have a different series that it has a lot of characters in it. And I had two characters, this guys on stage singing a song to this girl, and I did not know they were going to be together. I never imagined it. And I woke up with a song in my head, and I literally started trying furiously. It's long, it has multiple things, and I knew the tune, everything, and I had to try to remember it all and write it down. And we eventually had it recorded for the series. So it's kind of
Oh
crazy.
my God, that is incredible.
I miss that
Wow.
one.
I don't think I've ever heard a writer say that. And that's so beautiful. And I guess that also goes along with the fact that you have so many series, so many stories, like they're all coming to you at different times. Like you're not an author who just writes one book, waits, like the year to like deliver another one. You're just writing, writing, writing. And I think your readers love that as well, because they're always waiting, like, what's next in this story? And you're not putting
Well,
a stop to things for the most part.
no, and I in most of my series on that boy isn't as bad until you get to some of the later books, but most of them end on big, big cliffhangers,
Oh my
uh,
God.
which I hugely enjoy writing. And I always know the end of all the books before I even know what's happening in the books.
That is so interesting. That
People
is,
ask me a lot about, like, do you know? Because I'm starting a new series right now, and the first book came out, and they were all like, "Do you know who she's going to end up with now?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And they're like, "Have we met him?" And I was like, "Yes, you have."
that is okay. Which also, I know Eastbrook Academy is your latest book series, which I haven't read because I am very heavily deep into That Boy world currently for a reason that I kind of explained. Um, but that was kind of one of the questions I was going to ask. Yeah, that is so interesting. I growing up, I really enjoyed writing. I enjoyed reading, and one of my really good friends has told me, she's like, I think you should take on writing, and I'm like, that is very hard. Like that's very specific. Writing script is very specific. Writing novels is very specific, and I've kind of use an excuse like, oh, I'm just too scared. Like it's too much. I have a lot going on. But I may just have to like start writing like something small, and try it from there. Cause that's so fun. And I find that it's like for you, is it like such a release? Like, is it so cathartic to let these characters come to life? Especially, I mean, specifically after a dream, but emotionally in your life, how does that affect you?
I think my family says I'm happiest when I'm writing.
Oh,
So when
that's
there's a lot going on in our life, and
yeah.
like, it gets set aside for a while, because it's hard to write. Some people write 2,000 words a day, and they every day. My problem is when it starts coming out, I could write 5, 10,000
Mm,
words in a day if people would just leave me alone,
yeah.
And it's not unusual. I'm actually almost at the end of the second book, and I told my husband, I was like, well, it's time for me to go check in a hotel because I can have room service. Nobody bothers me. I can write for like 3 days straight. But
That
anyway.
is so funny. But at least you're supported, right? And like your
Oh
children
yeah,
are
sure.
older, so it's not like you have like little kids running around at the moment.
Yeah. I
But
had teens when
yeah, yeah,
eighth grade, ninth grade. So life was chaos, but I
yeah.
wrote at night back then after everybody went to bed.
Wow. Like were you like all-nighters?
A lot of times, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's so good. Okay, so back on this trio, which I, just to explain to y'all, it's Jaden, Danny, and Philip. JJ, we call Jaden JJ. she has a very particular relationship with each guy. And as you mentioned, we don't know who she eventually falls in love with till the end. Like it really just keeps us going throughout the whole book. And different points of the book, you're like, oh, it's definitely him. And you're like, oh no, maybe it's him. And it allows us to understand the complexities between her and both individuals. But did you ever, spoiler everybody, so right here, major spoiler, did you ever consider a storyline where she ends up with Danny and not Philip?
I think it's hard when you write because you fall in love with characters.
Mhm.
I am in love with Danny Diamond just
Yeah.
as much as I am with JJ. And so I think that it's hard, but no, honestly, no. I think that they are both super competitive.
Mhm.
I think they are both. I mean, Jaden, I don't feel like Jaden's got a huge ego, but
Hmm.
Danny's, he's used to being the star.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of couples need to have one star. I
Mhm.
think they would have competed. I think they
Yeah.
would have had huge highs in their relationship. I think they would have had horrible lows. And I
Mhm.
think they would have dragged their entire friend group in on the highs and lows. And I think they all would have just been like, you guys are a disaster together. Um, I think they're great friends. Like they're super supportive of each other. I mean, they love each other fiercely. And I think the thing that people forget sometimes in the series, and you really don't see it until that baby, is Philip and Danny's relationship is just, if not more
Mhm.
important
Mhm.
than her relationships with the guys, because they both kind of know themselves throughout life, you know, who's
Mhm.
meant to be with her.
Yeah.
And I
Whereas
think that,
she's struggling.
yeah, I do. I mean, I think she struggles. I think she
Yeah.
likes them both, loves them both
Yeah.
fiercely.
Yeah.
But I think well, there's a point in the book, if we're talking spoilers, where something tragic happens,
Why
and
not?
she, there's one boy that she just turns to and needs,
Mhm.
and I think that for me was a big pivotal point in their relationship, and just really cemented, even though a lot of people didn't see it when they were reading it, like after that, how do you not know? Even Danny knew at that
Yeah.
point, even though they kept trying,
Yeah.
to see if their relationship might come out of that. But
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I think the guys have such I think all of them have such a beautiful relationship. And I think just being able to love humans that deeply and stick with each other no matter what, and they stick through it all,
yeah,
into adulthood, into parenthood. And I think that's one of my favorite things about this story, because I don't see that as often in the stories that are being told today.
yeah,
We saw it a lot in series, back then, 90s, early 2000s, but you don't really see that as often now. This story in particular, um, which is so interesting now asking this question, knowing that these came from a dream, but did this story have any basis on your personal life or was it purely fictional?
I mean, I think everything I write has pieces of me in it. I have one series that I wanted to be a spy when I grew up. So I have a series where she's a spy, and that was a ball to write. I have a girl that loves fashion. Like Jaden is a tomboy. I was kind of a tomboy. I was my dad's son. It was
Yeah.
firstborn and played softball and basketball and all that fun stuff. Definitely the setting. I grew up in a small farm town. We partied in the cornfields,
Yeah.
and I think that very much. So there's pieces of me in her. She loves to cook.
Mhm.
As she gets older, she loves to. I think she and her Philip's mom especially show their love with food.
Mhm.
I definitely do that. I mean, I'm always cooking stuff for my family.
Yeah.
um, she loves football,
Mhm.
sports, and there's a lot of women out there that do. I mean, I know you're one.
Yes.
We're huge college football fans, and I just think that's cool to see in books too.
I think so. And like you said, I think it is so rare. Like my brother's going to LSU this year, and my dad and I are like, okay, great. Like, let us know when football season starts. We'll get you tickets. We'll be there too. Like, I
Yeah.
promise we won't be weird about it. Yeah, and I think that's what I related to most about this book is the small town aspect. Like, your friends are down the street from you. You know, football is religion, essentially, and it's what brings everybody together in such a beautiful, community type of way. And you celebrate life together in such a different way than if you were raised elsewhere. So I can
Yeah.
definitely relate to that in such a deep level. I One of the things which, as we mentioned, this book series grows, right? And I love that the audience gets to grow with these characters and gets to go through all the ups and downs with them, because there are a lot of big life shifts, their trauma, their heartbreak, their love, marriage, divorce, children, what have you. Did you imagine this when you first started it as a series, or did it literally just start with that boy and then just became like this thing that you couldn't stop?
Uh, Probably a combination of the
Uh-huh.
two, because as I said, I always want to know what happens next. And once I fall in love with characters or develop them, I have a hard time letting them go, which is why I think I love series. I also, that's always what I liked reading as a kid, as an adult. Um, Gosh, I have read like 50 books of all different authors because I like going back, even though the story is different. I like seeing the characters again and again because I feel like I'm part of their world.
Mhm.
And I think as a girl growing up in a small town, I mean, I had a bunch of girl cousins and my brother, so there were
Yeah.
definitely not two cute boys next door. I think it allows you to have kind of I mean, not a dream life. It's not like I want to change my life, but experience other things through other people's eyes, whether I'm going around the world on a boat or being a spy or, I don't know. It just going to Narnia, which is one
Yeah.
of my favorite things as a kid. Um, yeah, I just think it allows you to experience things that you don't normally get to from your house. And I think that's one thing that was really cool. I mean, nothing was cool about COVID, but the
Right.
fact that people were home and I had so many people that were reading and they hadn't had time to read for years. They just didn't have time. And now all of a sudden they have some time during lockdowns. And um, it was a love for literature came out of that bad thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's a good thing.
Yeah. I always say there was a I try to look at the positive of things, and I think
Mhm.
there was a silver lining with COVID.
Yeah.
And for me, you're right. It was not having time. I was on sets, in offices, whatever, wherever I was, but it's like you're go, go, go. You're just hustling, especially in the industry that I work in. And that just gave it was weird. I don't like to stop moving. I don't
Yeah.
like quiet, but these characters, I mean, I can't explain it any better than they kept me company. The same way that, One Tree Hill or the OC did that for us growing up, where you would get one episode a week and you were like, nobody call me during this time. I mean, this day of the week at this time. I remember one of my friends being so adamant about that. It's just like she would not answer her phone. And I'm like, this is crazy. But once I got into those series too, I was like, oh, I get it. Okay, I apologize for disrupting. But yeah, I I have there are points of appreciation that I have for the experience that happened through COVID, and that being one of them. Because like I said, so many little small things that ended up trickling in my life and in my career started from that
I,
really hard time, if you will. Um, do you well, I guess we kind of touched on this, but I know there are a lot of kids in this series.
yes.
You feel what I guess at what point, maybe that's a better question. At what point do you feel that either this series or your series come to an end? Like, where is that satisfaction for you? Does it come to you? Are you just like, I think this is where it is? What happens?
I don't really see that boy ever ending,
Okay.
honestly. I, like I have another long series that I ended because the big story arc was done.
Okay.
But then I was like, I should have just kept going and had a different story arc for new
Yeah.
characters. So and I think, especially my books, readers just love the characters and they feel like they're friends. And that's probably the one. I do a lot of crazy stuff, but I think that's if Jillian Dodd has a promise to her readers that she's going to find characters that you feel like you're friends with.
Yes.
And I don't know. So it's hard for me to give them up too. But I also know that people are like, oh my gosh, how many books are you going to have? Well, there's going to be a lot.
No
Sorry.
complaints from me here, obviously. Um, I love this series, and like the older they get, the juicier it gets, the more mature it
Mhm.
gets, the sexier they get. So it's kind of like you can't stop because you're like, oh, I need more of it. And so I definitely appreciate that part of your writing. Um, I am curious about your writing process. I know it starts with a dream because you do have multiple book series, so that all makes sense, which in itself is an absolute feat because there's a lot going on in your brain at one time. Do you like, can the series come at different times? Do you get to focus on one when you're there? What is that process like for you?
I mean, right now I'm definitely immersed in the series that I'm writing,
Okay.
which is Eastbrook. I'll write 2 more books in that series and then probably stop and write. I want to write Danny's son's first story, Damon's,
Okay.
because I'm hoping to have one of those books come out next year. But then it's going to end on a big cliffhanger. And I'm like, oh, I might have to figure out a way to do 2 next year in that series so people don't hate me for a year. But yeah, I don't know. I have different soundtracks I listen to for different books. I have a lot of like kind of mood boards that I look at. One's my 2 big series, one's prep school, one's small town. So they're very, very different in the kind of music I'd listen to, the kind of way they dress, the things they eat, just all of that are part of what make up the characters, the cars they drive. I mean, just all of that stuff. So mentally it's okay. I also write ahead. Like if I have a scene, like before wrote That Baby, which is where the next generation comes from,
Mhm.
I had already written 2 of the kids that are born's scenes from their future love story.
Oh.
And I knew they didn't like each other. And that's
Oh.
really all I knew. I'd written a scene where they don't like each other. And then I had to be like, okay, if I know that happens, how do I go back and write their books
Mm.
to either fix that or not? Because can you imagine? I mean, they were such best friends and now
Yeah.
their kids hate each other.
Yeah.
What happened?
Right.
So, anyways,
That is so interesting. That's your process has blown my mind. I'm
I
like,
think I have no
I've known you for 3 years,
process.
but I didn't know anything about you. This is so incredible and so intriguing to me. Oh my gosh. Okay. What has compelled this this writing style for you? Like as I mentioned earlier, there are authors who, yes, they keep their readers on a cliffhanger for a whole year, and you're just like, wait, okay, I know she said she's going to come out with something else, but when? Or some it's just like this is start end, that's it. Even if I know Colleen Hoover well, and I saw that she had written somewhere, and that actually might have been in her acknowledgement for it starts with us, how she was like, I wasn't going to write this, but the readers were like, I need something more. You cannot leave us here. And she was like, I am not an author who does that. Um, what is it, your audience that is just like that drives that force for you, or are you just like, no, like this is what I want to do for them? Like, do
I
you leave
had
them
that
hanging?
question in a kind of in a group about, have you ever felt swayed, especially like which guy is somebody going to choose is always a big deal in my series because there's always really a lot of them to choose
Yeah.
from and they all really have their, good characteristics. But I always know, and I would never let that change my story. And it's funny because when people go back and read a series, they're like, yeah, now I see what
Mhm.
I couldn't see before, and you couldn't have changed it because you've set it in motion clear back here.
Right.
So I've never really felt that way. I honestly have never written a book. Just I write for me. I gotta be
Yeah.
honest.
Okay.
It just
Yeah.
brings me joy, and I
Yes.
hope that it brings other people joy, I guess.
The utmost joy from one reader. I'm like, I'm just one reader, but the utmost joy. I get so thrilled by your books. What do you hope other readers will take from that boy? Whether they started it or not, whether they're intrigued by it, what is that like, just that that peaceful sense of, if you take this away, I've done enough.
I think I just want them to feel like they're part of a story themselves.
Mhm.
So I write I didn't like high school English because it was a lot of rules, and I write without rules. I mean, I obviously I have an editor that makes sure the grammar makes sense and all of that stuff, but I write very short, choppy sentences. I write the way people think, or the way I think, maybe,
Mhm.
um, the way people talk in general. I don't always start a sentence with a noun. I
Mhm.
might start with and four times in a row because that's my thought process. So I just want them to feel like they're part of the book. I want them to be easy to read. When my daughter goes through and edits, she's like, "This word's too big for you."
Mm. That's so good.
And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, this is the only one that fits, so we're
Yeah.
leaving it in." But for the most part, I try to make them easy to read. I mean, they're based in YA also, so you want to try to reach that market. I know there's a lot of adults that enjoy those series as well, but
Mhm.
yeah, I just want you to feel like you're part of the family, part of the friend group. I know there's, a lot of people who don't always feel that way at different times in their lives, or you feel separated from whoever in your life, and to be able to go read a book and feel like you're part of the friend group is a cool thing.
It so is. And I have to say that I think that's such an important element on why I love this book. I felt so seen by these characters. And I feel like in the industry today, that topic it's very sensitive.
Mm.
I am, a Latina woman in this industry, and maybe it's because I grew up in the South, so this book was so relatable to me, but I didn't see color in this book. I just saw three best friends, their incredible experience, that, like I said, that community, that family, that friendship, and I know that feeling, I grew up in that feeling. So it felt so safe for me. And I think that's why I enjoyed it so much during a point in COVID where I think things felt so chaotic and so unsafe. Like, this series felt so safe and so like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. JJ's going through this massive trauma and she's taking it like a boss, even though like her mental state is really just everywhere, but she's you feel seen and you feel like they're going through this too. Like, this is real life.
Yeah.
Um, and that stuck with me the most. And honestly, probably the biggest reason why I was like, everybody needs to see this in real life. And have that again, because I think what we have uh, out in the industry, although beautiful and dramatic, it's dark and heavy. You want
Mhm.
levity, you want hope, and at least for me, that is what your series has done. So everybody out there, I hope that it does it for you as well, because it is definitely such a fun experience to have reading this series. Okay, so before we end today, we do have some fun rapid fire questions
Oh
to
boy. Okay.
ask. Okay, so the first question is, what was your first job?
My first job, I would get up at 4 o'clock. If it's supposed to be short, right? I made donuts at the family restaurant.
Oh, fun. Okay. What movie do you enjoy quoting the most?
Anything that my husband considers a stupid movie.
That's
Talladega Nights. I mean, John Tucker Must Die. Like any just raunchy thing.
I love it. Um, what is your favorite type of, or who is your favorite type of musical artist or musical genre?
Mm. I like a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I do. And I like a lot of music. I like a lot of new music. Like I'm
Mhm.
not into what's in the past. Like I like newer music, whether it's
Okay.
country or rap or
Yeah.
whatever.
What inspires you in the moment? Yeah. Um, who is, aside from yourself, who is your favorite author?
Um, That's a hard one. I have so many good friends that are authors.
I know.
Um,
Currently,
my
maybe
best
like the
author friend
latest.
is Jen Sterling, and she wrote an amazing book called The Perfect Game, and it
Okay.
was one of her first or second book, and it's kind of why we met. And it's about a baseball player who's just a train wreck and hot as heck.
Yeah.
And it's a very up and down story, but it just the end, you're just like, oh,
Oh,
and
oh, I
you know,
might have to add
obviously
that to my
Colleen's amazing. There's a
Redland.
lot of I think there's a lot of great indie authors right now,
Mhm.
which is really
I
cool.
agree. Yes, yes. And I feel like this is another reason why Off the Shelf came to be, because I think like so many small authors are kind of like hidden and people don't get to see them. And I'm like, this is where my favorite stories are coming from right now. Um, what is maybe currently your favorite book?
This is hard because I read spy thrillers. Like I
Oh,
think
okay.
I really do. I read like Tom Clancy, and I read all the Stuart Woods books and all of the books with like Jack Ryan Jr. and Jack Ryan. And I mean, I've been
Okay.
reading those since high school. So I wanted to
Well,
be a spy when I grew up.
this is good to know because Michael and I are on a thriller movement right now with our book club. So might have
Love
to
you. I
come
love
back to you for that. Okay, last question. Finish the phrase. The way to my heart is.
just being a good friend, I think.
Oh, that's a good one. That is a
That
good.
champagne. If you're a good
Yes,
friend and you
that's
bring me champagne, that's even better.
yes, yeah, that's good. That's good.
Possibly decorating and going to Home Goods. So
Oh, yes, I was just there yesterday. I was like in every aisle. Well, Jillian, oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here with us. This was so exciting. I learned so much about you. I think your writing process and your brain is so incredibly creative, and I'm so grateful to know you, and I'm so grateful to get to be in doing life with you in any way possible. So this is really exciting, and obviously, hopefully, we'll get to come back on here soon and just give every detail to what we're doing for
that
that
would be
boy
awesome.
very soon. But thank you again for being with us on Off the Shelf. Everybody, if you have not read the That Boy series, go read it right now. It's incredible. And as you heard, she will not be stopping anytime soon. So catch up quickly. Thank you again for being with us on Off the Shelf. See you next time.